Hello everyone, Ariam here, and welcome back to another Draw and Discuss. The three dinosaurs I'm talking about today originally each had their own episode planned. I drew them completely separately, often weeks apart, and then I realized they were all family members that shared a very common trait, and they had to go into one episode together. This first little fellow is Mononychus. The next is Linhennychus, and the last is Alvarezsaurus. Now, the last fellow's name, Alvarezsaurus, relates directly to the alvesaurid dinosaurs, which all three of these are, but the other two have names that more accurately explain why I picked them for a Draw and Discuss video. The first dinosaur here, Mononychus, has a name that means one claw. Linhennychus is a little bit more specific, being named after the area it was found, Linhe, but its full Latin name means single finger. So you can kind of see what really weird trait ties all these family members together. That's right, all three of these species had one large finger on each arm, and that is strange enough to deserve its very own Draw and Discuss episode. So let's talk about why on Earth, not only one species, but several species would lose most of the digits on their hands and eventually only have one finger on each arm. All three of these theropod dinosaurs were relatively tiny. Mononychus was between 3 and 4 feet long and around 7 to 8 pounds. Linhennychus was even tinier, around 1.5 feet long and only about 18 ounces in weight. Alvarezsaurus was about the same size as Mononychus, around 3 to 5 feet long and around 6 pounds. So that gives us our first clue about the way these animals lived. They weren't using those single claws to go up against sauropods or ceratopsians. They were little guys and would have eaten little things. So let's talk about what fingers are used for. For humans and other primates, we generally use our fingers to pick up and manipulate objects, and many other species today use their hands for the same reasons. Hands or paws, depending on the animal, of course. But not every animal needs to pick up or manipulate things in order to be successful in its life, and oftentimes having multiple digits where the pressure or power of the arm is spread out over 4 to 5 digits reduces the efficacy of those movements and makes it weaker overall. An important thing to note is that these animals didn't have one finger because the other fingers merged together. This is one finger where the others atrophied and became smaller, so you can still see those teeny tiny little finger bones left in the skeleton. This would mean that these animals would have a single point of pressure when they were using their claw, essentially increasing the amount of power they could put into whatever they were working on. So what would they have been working on? Well, take your hand and look at it. You have 5 fingers. Probably the average amount of fingers per person is lower than 5, but for the most part I'm guessing 5. Now take your fingers and put them all together as if they were one unit, with a flat palm. What does your hand kind of resemble? It should look like a scoop or a shovel. And this is exactly what it is believed these species used their little claw for, a shovel. It's largely believed that these animals fed on colony insects, like termites or ants, and they could have used their little shovel claw to dig out those mounds and access the nutrient-rich grubs inside the mound. This is also supported by the idea that these animals had really reduced forearms. Their arms were short and it ended in a single claw. This means that because of physics in terms of movement, angle, and energy, they would have had pretty good digging power. So essentially, these animals had one dominant digit in the same way that moles kind of have large, overblown, powerful hands. For the moles, their entire hand becomes the shovel or spade. Their claws are greatly exaggerated and they have really big palms. These dinosaurs took it in a slightly different direction. reducing their hands down to a single point and using that for digging. I think this is an interesting topic for many reasons, but especially to point out that just because an animal has quote-unquote lost something that we consider important to our day-to-day lives does not mean that they were inhibited. In fact, this loss might have actually been beneficial to their overall survival. Over time, these animals developed a dominant finger where the others atrophied, withered away, and weren't used over generations, not in a single animal's lifetime, of course, and this helped their species thrive. So you don't always have to gain something in order to benefit from it. It's a similar idea to the appendix in humans today. Our lifestyle no longer necessitates the appendix to help break down super tough foods and bone matter like our Neanderthal ancestors may have needed. As the appendix lost its function in life because we are no longer chewing down on such hard, complex foods, it became almost useless. It still exudes some digestive enzymes, but you can live fully functionally without an appendix. And some people actually need them removed because they end up getting clogged and infected, which can be life-threatening. This is essentially what happened in these dinosaurs. Animals with a more robust dominant finger were able to dig into termite mounds better, and they were able to survive and reproduce. And over time, those extra digits weren't needed. They were simply bred out of the population. There's no need for the body to send energy and resources towards something that's not needed. So I don't know, I hope you guys find this as interesting as I do. I realized that I drew all of these dinosaurs separately and then went, wait, I have a bunch of little guys that all have one finger. How weird. And then I looked into it more and I thought, that's super interesting because you don't often see beneficial loss as much in evolution. We like to think of evolution as adding things to an animal that will help it survive, but sometimes the benefit comes from losing what isn't necessary. So let that be a lesson to you all. Growth happens in many ways. You might add something beneficial to your life, and that might improve things for you. But also remember that improvement can come from removing things that aren't benefiting you. Is that perhaps a bit too philosophical for a video about tiny, one-fingered chicken dinosaurs? Maybe. But these little guys should also remind you that life isn't just about adding in good things. It can be about removing things that are no longer useful to you. And that should remind you to smile.